G'day mates, welcome back. My name is Jack. You're a snack because you decided to watch this video. It's time for some Reddit story readings. As always, if you enjoy your time, liking and subscribing, very much appreciated. And let's begin. This story began in r/relationships by a throwaway. I, 21 female, suspect that I might be my boyfriend's 29 male of 2 years side chick. Some details. Tim and I have been together for 2 years. We are both foreigners living in Europe. Names have been changed. Tim is a very private person in general, and so maybe some of the strangeness stems from that. In order to explain everything, I think I have to start at the very beginning. Tim and I met at an event for native English speakers after each of us having lived here for a year. We hit it off immediately. Later that week, we went to a pub crawl with other people from the event and hooked up. Only a few days later, we decided to meet up again. But when trying to decide if it would be at my place or his, he told me it has to be mine, and he'll explain why later. For the record, I do not live in an ideal situation to be having people, much less men, over, and he was completely aware of the situation. He came over and told me that he is currently still living with his ex-girlfriend of about 3 months. He had his own room and everything, but because he had prepaid for 6 months of rent to lend her some money, he was staying there. Okay, so yeah, I know this is weird, but who am I to judge? He says they are definitely broken up, and I'm just sleeping with the guy right now, so whatever. Well, a few weeks go by and we decide to start dating exclusively and officially. He says he's just living with his ex, who we'll name Stephanie, temporarily for another 3 months, and then he'll find another place. Alright, so it's a weird situation, but I trust him, and he'll leave in 3 months. He complains about having to live with her and says it's uncomfortable. He also told me why they broke up, which was because he caught her cheating on him with her ex at a party. So I'm not worried about them getting back together. I'm not 100% comfortable with the situation, but it's manageable. A few months pass, and Tim doesn't move out. He says he's now got his own little apartment in the same house, but that it's so much better for him to stay there because he doesn't have to buy any furniture, and the rent is cheap. Remember, we're foreigners, so buying a ton of furniture that you're just going to have to sell when you leave is annoying. Now he eventually starts saying that he's going to bring me over there to show me that they're living separately and whatnot. Long story short, that never happened. Every time I asked him to ask her about it, he'd say that she'd get upset and blah blah blah. Apparently, she was aware that he had a girlfriend, but didn't like it and wanted to get back together. After a year, he finally moved out. Not into his own place, but into the spare room at his buddy's house. I had been to his buddy's place before, only once though, and that has been the one and only time I've ever met one of his non-mutual friends, which is suspicious and strange on its own. I didn't help with the move, not for lack of trying, so no, I never saw him move his stuff there. Again, this was a temporary solution until he found a place of his own. Now, through various circumstances, a company being bought out which led to job insecurity, him being extremely picky about finding an apartment, he has still yet to move into a place of his own. It's been about 10 months since he moved into his buddy's place, and I've yet to be there, even though I've asked many times. He always says yes, but then later says that he doesn't want to intrude or be a nuisance, etc. So essentially, I've never seen where he lives. Those things, along with me never having met his friends or Skyped with his family, are the underlying basis for my suspicion. But here's where the real stuff comes. Last night, when I couldn't sleep, I went Facebook stalking. I searched for tag photos of Tim because I know he's weird about his Facebook and doesn't let tagged pictures and posts show up on his wall. While going through the pictures, I found 3 pictures of him while he was visiting home over the summer. In each of these 3 pictures, there is a girl who is untagged and sitting next to Tim. In 2 of the 3 pictures, his arm is around her, but the pictures are more posed and everyone's arms are around each other. 2 of the pictures are with friends, so I figured she's a friend from home, no big deal. In 1 picture, though, they are with his sister and her husband and daughter, so a much more intimate picture. I do not know what Stephanie looks like, and she doesn't have Facebook. I can't find a picture of her through Googling, but I think this girl might be her. I don't know exactly why I think that, but I do. I did some more Google research and found Stephanie's grandmother's obituary. She died in January, so that's after Tim would have moved out of the house and definitely after they should have been broken up. And yet, on the obituary is his name listed next to Stephanie as members of the family. I do know that he was close to the grandmother and that she left him stuff in her will, but still, I'm suspicious. If what I suspect is true, that means that he was able to hide this from me and her for 2 years, which is honestly just impressive. Right now, though, I'm stuck. I don't want to bring up my relatively weak evidence with him until I can be sure, because he'll just have an excuse and I'll just accept it because I want to trust him and be with him. I don't know how to get any more proof that the girl in the pictures is Stephanie or how to know for sure one way or the other. So that's where I'd like advice. I'm not going to break up with him without knowing 100% because I honestly do love him, but I don't know how I can know 100%. Any advice or help is appreciated, although please be constructive. Now, naturally, this sounds like tasty drama and tea, so of course all the comments are immediately assuming that he is in fact cheating. So rather than repeat what we all already think, let's go through some of the questions and answers from OP. Things like, how often does OP actually see Tim throughout the week? We see each other at least twice a week, usually more, and he spends the night almost every weekend. Now, some comments get suspicious with this. Well, that's an awful lot of time to spend away from home with a mistress. You mentioned that you are 2 hours away from their old apartment. What would allow him to be away for so long so regularly? His job? Is he still that far away after moving out? Do you ever do anything in his area, or are you always in your area? There's a lot of suggestive hooks for Reddit to latch onto here, but there's not a ton of meat within your posts to come to an absolute conclusion. Now, OP responds to say that their old apartment, the ex and the boyfriend, is only about a 40-minute drive away. However, because I don't have a car, I'd have to get there using public transport, and because it's in the middle of nowhere, it'd take me about 2 hours to get there. His new apartment is only a 20-minute drive and much closer to where he works. He does not travel for work that often, and when he does, it's usually only for a night or two during the week. We mostly stick to doing things around where I am because I live nearer to the city where there are actually things to do. Plus, like I said, getting to around where his friends are is an annoyance with public transportation, and drinking and driving is a definite no-go. Okay, then what about all the plans that he often cancels? Does he do that a lot? Opie says, yes, he cancels or comes late quite often. I don't know exactly where the new apartment is. I know the village it's in, but not the address. As I said before, I've never really met any of his friends, except for one of them one time. So, with your theory in mind, if this is in fact a cheater or merely just a coincidence, we come to a 6 weeks later update. So, it's been a while. The story was developing and I didn't want to update without knowing anything for sure. I never expected my post to get so much attention, and minus the few comments and PMs about me being a slut, I really appreciate all of the input everyone had, and I read every single comment and message. So, first off, thanks to everyone. As many people suggested I do, I started with a conversation with Tim where I made very, very clear how much the whole situation bothered me and why it was an issue for me. I tried to show him things from my perspective and tried to make him understand why I was so upset. He said he understood and apologized profusely. He cried and I cried. He said it was never his intention to hurt me, and that he didn't realize this had been such a large issue for me, and that he had been selfish about it. He said it was all going to change, and that I would meet his friends and see where he's staying, and get to Skype with his family, etc. He said I was the most important part of his life here, and that he can't imagine his life without me in it. He said he wants to find an apartment for us to live together, and that when I'm done with school, he wants to go back home together for good. He also told me that the girl in the pictures was an old family friend, and that he was in the obituary because he still is close with the family, and, to quote him, they still wish I was a part of the family. I decided to wait and see if he actually held up his end of things this time, and so we made up and all was well. What I didn't mention is that during my snooping phase before this conversation, I found the phone number to the landline where Stephanie lives and decided to give it a call asking for Tim. Stephanie's dad answered, and when I asked for Tim, he told me to call his cell phone because this was the landline. So not exactly helpful. Now, before you guys freak out about the dad thing, the house is like a duplex where the parents have their own half and Stephanie has her own half. This is not uncommon in small villages here. A couple days after Tim and I talked, he texted me asking if I had called Stephanie's house asking for him. I decided not to lie and admitted it. He said that she texted him saying that some girl with an accent had called the house asking for him, and he immediately thought that it must have been me. I explained that I did it because I felt desperate for answers and just wanted to know what was going on. I also told him that it was inconclusive. He got very upset and said I had betrayed his trust and that I was acting like an insane person. He isn't exactly wrong about that part. But I explained that I felt forced to take such actions because I felt like I was never going to get any answers any other way. I apologized for the invasion of privacy and for bothering Stephanie and her family. After a few days, he calmed down and forgave me, saying, however, that this may push back me meeting his friends because he told them what happened and they were pissed that I would treat him that way. I waited a few weeks to see if anything would change, and unsurprisingly, it did not. So, this past weekend, he got very drunk one night, and I was able to open his phone with his fingerprint while he was sleeping. I found texts from Stephanie from the day before talking about what they should make for dinner that night. He told me he was out of town for work that night. I found lots of hearts and I love yous, and even him using the same pet names for her as he does for me. He told her he was going out of town this weekend for work and how much he'd miss her. I looked through the past few weeks of messages between them and saw that he had sent her quite a few of the same pictures that he had sent me. He had invited her to have a glass of wine with his buddy and her girlfriend. He picked her up from work multiple times, and there were lots of conversations about who was making dinner that night and what they should eat. I went back and looked for dates where I knew he had slept over with me, and he had always told her he was crashing at a friend's place or out of town for work or something along those lines. I also found a group text message titled Family that included Tim, his sister, his mum, and Stephanie. I looked at pictures of Stephanie that she had sent him and was able to very obviously see that it was her in the pictures that I found on Facebook. So you guys were right. For the last 2 years, he's been living with her and seeing me on the side, all the while telling me how much he loves and admires me and how we're going to have a future together. I have been duped and taken advantage of, and I feel like a complete idiot because of it. I haven't talked to him yet, but when he comes over later in the week, I plan to tell him that I know everything. I also plan to tell him that he is a complete a-hole. In my ideal conversation, he'd explain to me why he did this and what the hell he was thinking during all of this, but I am pretty sure those are just things that I'll never know or understand. Obviously, I will break up with him. I also plan on contacting Stephanie with a letter telling my side of the story. I will give her dates that I know he spent the night with me so that she can cross-check them with dates that he did not come home. I also plan to include a USB stick with pictures of Tim and me from the last 2 years and screenshots of some of our conversations from the last couple of months. I can't make her believe me, but I want to at least do my best for her. I feel like I owe it to her as a fellow human being to let her know what kind of man she's been with for the last 4 years. I am open to absolutely any advice on my plan and how to move forward from this. I won't lie, I feel so lost and so helpless right now. By breaking up with Tim, I'm losing a huge part of my life in this country, and I'm definitely going to be feeling this hole for a while. So any help is appreciated. Thank you guys so much for listening, and sorry this is long as hell. I got carried away. Well, who would have thunk the worst we thought of this person ends up being true? That never happens on Reddit. Now, thing is, despite Opie having this game plan ready and set in motion, everyone in the comments is telling her to really just hold the brakes. Do not do this with you wanting to confront him about everything. This will, at best, give him time to get his story straight and cover his tracks. At worst, it will result in him hiding your dead body. But do this with you letting Stephanie know about everything. If you send it using whatever your country's version of a registered letter is, the actual recipient needs to sign for it, it will have a better chance of getting to Stephanie. That goes double if it's in the mail at the same time or slightly before you start the ghosting, not after. Some even suggest a more mischievous route. Actually, she should tell Tim to meet her at a specific time and place, but don't show up. At the exact moment he is supposed to be meeting her, she should have hand-delivered the note and evidence to Stephanie if she knows the address. So, a few days later, with all this advice and warnings as to what not to do, Opie comes back with the second update. So, I took your advice and did not try to have a conversation with Tim. I realized that since he was so successfully able to manipulate me for 2 years, having one last conversation with him was bound to end up with me doubting my findings and perhaps my sanity. I wrote Stephanie a 3-page letter detailing the relationship that Tim and I have had over the past 2 years, making it clear that it was serious and not just a fling. I mentioned dates and events that most people would not have known about, and I included the intricate lies and backstory that he had told me. I included a list of dates from the last 2 months that he spent the night with me and encouraged her to cross-check them with nights that he wasn't at home. I printed out a few photos of us as a quick visible proof, and I included the rest of the photos on a USB stick in the letter. The stick also contained screenshots of any particularly incriminating conversations that we've had over the last few months. I scanned postcards that he had sent me from various vacations and included those as well. For a safe measure, I also included a copy of the letter, in case the hard copy went somehow mysteriously missing. I gave her my email address and phone number and asked her to contact me if she wanted to. So on Wednesday night, I had someone drive me to where she lives. If Tim was there, I would just have confirmations that he actually lives there and we'd leave. If he wasn't there, I'd ring the doorbell and hand her the letter personally. We drove the 45 kilometers, and Tim was sitting there in the living room on his laptop. It was obvious he lived there. She was nowhere to be seen. His and her names were on the mailbox. I called to see if he'd pick up, and he ignored the call. We headed back home. So on Thursday morning, I mailed the letter. I ensured that it was registered post. In order to receive the letter, she'd have to show her ID and sign for it. Then on Friday, the letter arrived. She was not home, so she received a notification to go pick the letter up at the post office. On Saturday morning, she picked it up, and I got an email of the receipt with her signature on it. Throughout all of this, I conversed normally with Tim and made excuses as to why he couldn't come over during the week, so as to not tip him off to anything. He stopped talking to me about 20 minutes after she picked up the letter Saturday morning, and I have not heard from him since. He has, however, defriended me and my family on Facebook. I have not heard from Stephanie either. So, now it's really over. I hope with my whole heart that he was not able to lie and manipulate his way out of the situation with her, but I will probably never know. I do not expect to hear from him again. I feel very lonely, taken advantage of, and beaten down. I am going to do my best to try to come out of this situation without trust issues and without being cynical and jaded. I am seeking therapy to make sure I don't slip into depression, but for now, I need to find ways to distract myself and fill up any free time. So everyone's gathered in the comments with that sense of like, huzzah, we've won, but at what cost? Like, yay, we were right, but now OP is miserable. We didn't really plan for this, how to deal with this part here. What, ooh, oh no. Despite the many cliche supportive comments, you get some that say things like, I'm sorry you won't get proper closure from all this craziness, but you did the right thing cutting contact with him and letting Stephanie know what kind of person he really is. Hopefully, she'll take your information to heart. God, I hope so. I'm actually more worried, if anything, if maybe something's happened to Stephanie. Not that there's any sort of evidence or proof that Tim here could be someone that's dangerous, but I just wonder if maybe there's a reason why she hasn't reached out isn't necessarily because she doesn't want to have to, speak to OP. But of course, that is rather dramatic of an assumption to make. And honestly, good on OP for actually taking the advice of people to not actually engage with Tim about this. Just focus on getting the information to Stephanie and then sailing off into the sunset, or Wait, no, riding off into the sunset. That's the saying. What do you think, though? Do you think Tim should have been confronted a bit more? Let us enjoy the tea of hearing about him either groveling or trying to double down on his behavior. Let me know what you think down below. In the meantime, though, of course, it is time to end today's video there. Thank you, as always, for watching. Always appreciate having you stick around to say hello and just put me to the side while you go do other more important things with your life. I hope I've been some entertaining background noise for your day, and until next time, you be good, love your face, bye-bye now.